Welcome. I'd really appreciate if you could drop a comment with your thoughts and reactions as you listen. Your feedback helps me craft better stories for you. Lena sighed as she scrolled through yet another long thread on her favorite online forum, The Hidden Room. She had exhausted all the active discussions and solved every puzzle or code challenge mentioned. As the foremost puzzle solver on the site, these days she mostly helped other users who got stuck. An alert pinged, a private message. She clicked it open curiously, hoping for a new, intriguing puzzle to tackle. But the message held only an encrypted string of letters, numbers, and symbols with no other context. Lena raised an eyebrow, immediately intrigued by this anonymous challenge. She copied the coded message to her decryption software and began analyzing patterns, looking for numeric sequences or letter frequencies that might reveal the encryption method. Hours passed as Lena tweaked settings and ran algorithms, getting nowhere. Frustration mounted. She hated an unsolved puzzle. As a last resort, she posted the encrypted message on the forum, tagging the original sender if they were still monitoring, with a plea for any clues. To her surprise, within minutes, a user called EnigmaFiend responded. "I can offer one hint. It's an unconventional polyalphabetic cipher combining substitution and transposition techniques. But the reward for solving is well worth the effort. Let me know if you make any progress." A reward. Now, Lena was really hooked. She dug back into the code with renewed vigor, considering more complex decryption approaches. After another marathon coding session, a pattern finally emerged between every seventh character. Piecing it together letter by painstaking letter, the message gradually revealed itself. Congratulations on cracking the first step. There are greater puzzles ahead if you're willing to accept guidance from a mysterious helper. Reply if interested in continuing the game. Lena stared at the decoded words on her screen, pulse quickening. A game with multiple puzzles and a mysterious online assistant. It sounded too enticing to pass up. She typed out a quick reply confirming her interest and waited impatiently for the next move. What had she gotten herself into? Part of her said to back out now before going any deeper down this potential rabbit hole. But her innate curiosity was already in overdrive. The game, it seemed, had only just begun. Lena awoke with a start, blinking at the harsh glow of her laptop screen. She must have dozed off at her desk in the early hours of the morning, drained from her latest decoding session. Rubbing gritty eyes, she checked for messages and saw one, waiting from EnigmaFiend. Heart pounding with anticipation, she opened it. Inside lay another complex encryption, this one even more challenging than the last. As layers of encryption fell away hour by hour, hidden clues emerged, references to shadowy figures and covert plans, dates and locations scattered like breadcrumbs. By late afternoon, Lena emerged from her coding trance excited yet unsettled. The decoded message spoke vaguely of corporate espionage, targeting a major tech firm with schematics, prototypes, and secret projects slated for theft. Though anxious about real criminals, her curiosity was too piqued to stop now. She messaged EnigmaFiend for guidance. To her surprise, a video call invitation arrived within minutes from an untraceable source. After hesitating, Lena clicked accept, curiosity overcoming doubts. Through shaky camera footage, she saw only darkness and glimpses of a hooded figure. "You've done well to progress this far. Are you certain you wish to continue?" asked a distorted voice. Lena's instincts screamed to disconnect, yet she heard herself say, "Yes, I want to solve it, but what's your stake in all this?" A dry chuckle emerged from the shadows. "Let's just say I have. Skin in the game. I can provide clues to unravel the layers, but only if you follow strictly and keep our communications private. Proceed at your own risk. Your next task awaits." The call ended, leaving Lena more unsettled. She noticed activity on the forum, new threads popping up at strange hours, mentioning sightings of dark vehicles and figures lurking outside homes, always in peripheral vision, yet disappearing upon approach. Coincidences or purposeful misdirection related to the puzzle? Her computer dinged. Another encrypted batch of troubling clues pointing to an unwitting scapegoat, and plans for a hack the following night. Lena knew she should log off, alert authorities, anything but keep playing this ominous game. Yet she burned to solve it, outmaneuver the other players, and stop the plot, whatever it was. With a resigned sigh, she buckled down to decrypt the latest layer, accompanied only by growing feelings of being watched from the shadows. Lena paced her small apartment, glancing repeatedly at the encrypted coordinates displayed on her laptop. According to EnigmaFiend's latest clue, this location held answers about the true nature of their game, but meeting in person seemed foolhardy, even dangerous. She startled at a knock, then laughed at her own jumpiness. Opening the door, her breath caught at the hooded figure standing solemnly. "You came," he said, voice still digitized beyond recognition. Memories of glimpsed shadows and whispered threats lingered as she followed EnigmaFiend down shadowy streets, pulse quickening with each furtive movement. Finally, halting at an abandoned warehouse, he turned. Inside, hurry. Rows of dusty crates swallowed the meager glow from her phone as Lena crept through the musty gloom. A faint glow ahead guided her into a dimly lit room where a lone figure sat, typing briskly. At her entrance, EnigmaFiend rose and removed his hood, revealing only nondescript features in the dull light. Lena stumbled backwards in alarm as his silhouette morphed and flexed unnaturally. A hologram. "I apologize for the subterfuge, but it's necessary given the risks," said the synthesized voice, now disembodied. "Surely you've pieced together this involves more than games. Corporate secrets will be stolen if we don't intervene tonight." Lena reeled, clutching her phone helplessly. "Why are you doing this?" A sigh emanated from the empty room. "Details don't matter now. I accessed sensitive data, saw their plans, and want to sabotage safely from the shadows. But I need an operative on site during the hack. Will you help stop them?" She shuddered, recalling glimpsed hints of greater schemes beneath the puzzle layers. "Why me? I'm just an amateur coder." "Because I've followed your online activities, and you have a gift for breaking codes. Others can't. With my insider knowledge and your skills working in tandem remotely, we can trace the hack and tip off authorities. All you need do is access the vulnerable system from their targeted location tonight, and I'll handle the rest from here. What do you say? Will you join the game?" Lena wavered, mind racing through dangers and unknowns, yet grasping for purpose in this shadow world. With a resigned breath, she nodded. "Tell me what I need to do." Lena studied the layout of the sprawling tech firm, memorizing pathways according to EnigmaFiend's route. He maintained communications through her earpiece as she stealthily navigated the dimly lit halls. Her pulse raced as muffled voices echoed ahead. She froze against a wall, whispering, "Someone's coming." "Don't panic," came the digitized reply. "Listen closely. Can you make out what they're discussing?" Lena strained to hear through the thudding of her heart. "Just repairs. No mention of tonight. Should I risk going further?" "Proceed with caution. I'm tracing their communications and locating vulnerabilities. Look for an employee computer terminal around the next corner." She crept forward silently. A glow emanated from an ajar door down the hall. Snaking inside, Lena found the terminal and plugged in a thumb drive from her pocket. "Load the encryption backdoor I provided. I'll do the rest." Lena complied, jumping at a creak from the hall. "Hurry." Footsteps neared as data downloaded in an agonizing crawl. The door swung open, revealing two hooded figures. Lena scrambled away, but found herself cornered, their hands reaching. "Freeze. Police are outside ready to storm in. came EnigmaFiend's digitized bark, echoing through Lena's earpiece and around the room to her astonishment. Drop your equipment and raise your hands now if you value your freedom. The thieves glared murderously but complied. We've got a rat, the taller one growled into a hidden mic, before the two were seized by armed officers flooding inside. Lena slumped, shaking uncontrollably. You set a trap. Lured me here to catch them. Who are you really? She demanded shakily into her mic. A pause. Then a new voice replied calmly through the air. My name is Caleb. I'm an undercover agent who infiltrated their organization. Thank you for your brave help tonight. It will take down a dangerous ring. Now please come with me. You're safe. The truth will be revealed. I promise. But for now, just know you have a friend instead of a phantom. The game is over, and you won. Lena finally exhaled, fear subsiding into relief, as a young man approached with an understanding smile. For now, answers would have to be enough. Caleb waited patiently outside interrogation as Lena recounted the night's harrowing events. Finally emerging exhausted, she found him with 2 coffees. Thank you for this, she said softly. Now tell me the truth. Who are you really? He nodded. My name is Caleb Miles, special agent with the FBI Cybercrimes Unit. We've been investigating a hacker ring exploiting security holes for insider trading and data theft schemes. I went undercover online as EnigmaFiend to gain their trust, learn their plans, and identify members. But why involve me? Asked Lena warily. At first, it was just using your skills to further our investigations, but I came to respect your talent and didn't want to see you hurt. So I devised the game to test your abilities safely while steering criminals into our takedown. He paused. I never meant to endanger you. I'm sorry for that. Lena searched his open, earnest gaze. If you're really sorry, then help me understand. Why go to such lengths with codes and puzzles? Caleb smiled ruefully. I knew I had to keep you engaged without revealing the real stakes. Puzzles were the most believable cover for covert communications. And I'll admit, I found your talent admirable. She huffed a laugh, tension easing. Fine. I suppose I can't fault clever tactics. So what's next for the game players? With the evidence you helped uncover, we've dealt a major blow to their operations, but there may still be loose ends to tie up. Care to help one last time as a civilian consultant? Lena grinned, excitement stirring beneath unease. I suppose I can't quit now. Lead the way. Agent Caleb. He returned her smile, and together they walked into the dawn, a new alliance forming between light and shadow. Out of danger's shadows emerged hope of redemption through truth. Lena's long mystery was solved at last. A new chapter beginning where curiosity and skill could be channeled toward greater justice. The end of one mystery marked only the beginning. The row of screens glowed an eerie blue in the darkness, their cold light casting sharp shadows across my face. I sat silently, hands hovering expectantly over the keyboard as if awaiting judgment from some digital deity. Before me, auctions were underway on a dozen dark markets I'd only just gained access to. Hidden layers where sinister goods changed hands, cloaked in a veil of perfect anonymity. This was it. The moment of truth had arrived after weeks of meticulous research and planning. I'd assumed a secret new identity, forged documents to substantiate my forged life. Now, behind the veil of this pseudonym, I finally had what I needed to infiltrate the sprawling networks and unmask the ruthless kingpins, pulling the strings. All that remained was to take the plunge. I steeled myself and placed my first bids. Trivial amounts on minor parcels, just enough to blend in as a newcomer getting my feet wet. No sense-raising alarms until I learned the lay of this shadowy land. In truth, what little I witnessed sickened me to my core. Children, weapons, even murder for hire, all regular commodities here in this unregulated market of depravity hidden from the prying eyes of the law. Every listing I glimpsed seemed to corrode my soul further. How many others suffered in silence while monsters like these profited from their cruelty? I vowed then and there this place would not stand. One way or another, I would see it shattered to pieces. Justice would be served, no matter the cost. Gradually, as days passed, I widened my search, lurking message boards and back channels, planting seeds to draw out which sellers might lead back to puppet masters pulling their strings. It was a slow infiltration, like feeling my way through an underground maze in pitch blackness. One wrong step, and it could all come crashing down. That's when a private message arrived from an unknown sender calling themselves Nomad. Blunt, suspicious, but offering insight I couldn't refuse. A partnership of sorts to jointly dismantle this auction house of horrors from within its shadows, layer by poisonous layer. According to Nomad, he'd been engaged in this solitary crusade much longer than I. Where I was naive, hot-headed in my zeal for justice, he was cautious, calculating. Perhaps too jaded, too distrustful after years adrift in these endless digital murks. But he knew their tricks, had survived where others fell. An alliance with him could speed our progress. If I was willing to submit to his control, embrace his methods no matter how extreme. I paused, staring at his words aglow on the screen before me, caught in their eerie glow. Deep in my heart, I knew this was the chance I'd been waiting for. The key to unlocking truths no one person alone ever could. A chance to tear this whole deviant empire down at its rotten core in one fell swoop. But could I trust this Nomad not to be another snake lurking within the grass, with agendas of his own? Only one way to find out. Our fateful pact was sealed with a single keystroke, binding me irrevocably to this shadowy partner, and his dark crusade underneath the ghoulish light of my screens. From this point forward, in the realm of these lurking beasts, I was reborn. A new identity, branded in encryption at soul, deep level like scar tissue. Here in the underworld's bowels, I had become. Our first mission began with a name. Salazar, a prominent seller according to Nomad's intel, peddling depraved services on a dozen auction boards under different aliases. We take him down. It'll rock their whole foundation. Nomad had insisted. I wasn't convinced dismantling one man would crumble an empire, but agreed it was a starting point. For weeks, we monitored Salazar's patterns, piecing together habits and timetables through anonymous message relays. He was meticulously careful, changing routines, dropping off the grid. Always one step ahead, it seemed. Slowly, though, a picture emerged. A man driven more by greed than skill. We just needed the right opportunity to exploit a weakness. It came one Tuesday, as Salazar posted footage of a live auction. Some poor soul struggling vainly as a timer counted down, revealing nothing of their identity or fate. A gag to attract depraved buyers, no doubt. But it also revealed his location. The background was too distinct. An abandoned warehouse I'd been monitoring. Without conferral, Nomad insisted on immediate action. I pleaded for caution, but he would not be dissuaded. Our fragile trust creaked under mounting pressure as his paranoia took hold. Finally, against my better judgment, I relented, and we moved in under cover of night. The warehouse was eerily silent as we breached the gates, weapons drawn. A trap alarm screaming in my mind, but pushing forward recklessly all the same. We swept room by room, finding nothing, no clues as to where Salazar had vanished. It was only as we prepared to withdraw that I spotted it, a sliver of light below a patch of loose concrete. My heart dropped as I peeled it back to find steel stairs disappearing into darkness. Exchanging a grim look, we descended uncertainly into the black. At the bottom, the stench hit us like a wall. Scents I pray never to name. By flickering emergency lights, we picked our way between rusted containers and saw the cages, dozens upon dozens, packed with emaciated forms too out of it to register our presence. We had found Salazar's menagerie of misery at last. Then in the shadows, a click. My blood ran cold as a voice echoed calmly through the murk. "I was hoping you'd find your way down here, Cipher. And Nomad too. What a pleasure. I've been waiting such a long time for this reunion." Stepping into the dim red glow, features smoothing into a grin that did not touch his dead eyes, was a figure hauntingly familiar to me. And a Nomad, judging by the strangled sound catching in his throat. A man who should have been erased long ago, whose specter had clearly been dogging Nomad all this time beneath the surface of his words. "Hello, brother? Miss me?" Salazar smiled wider as confusion and rage warred across Nomad's warped features. In that moment, it was clear our fragile bond of necessity had been an elaborate fiction. One of betrayal had festered at the heart of our alliance from the very beginning. And like the lost souls in the cages behind us, I realized in dawning horror, we were trapped underground with a monster. The warehouse faded into darkness as unconsciousness dragged me under. When light bled through once more, it took several blinks for my blurred vision to resolve the sterile white walls enclosing me. I tried to rise, only to find my wrists and ankles bound with plastic zip ties to an uncomfortable chair. My heart began to race. How long had I been out? What had become of Nomad? Worse yet, what fate had befallen the poor souls trapped below? Questions swirled without answers, clawing panic rising in my chest until a door opened with a metallic scrape, flooding the cramped cell with harsh fluorescent light. Squinting against the glare, two hulking figures lumbered inside, followed by a slighter man smiling without warmth. "Salazar. Welcome back to the land of the living," he greeted smoothly. "I hope your rest was." His acidic politeness curdled my stomach as I glared back wordlessly. Struggling against bindings, Salazar talked in mock disappointment. Now, is that any way to treat your host? I could have left you for dead down in that pigsty. You know, his tone darkened. In fact, part of me still thinks I should have. My racing thoughts flickered to Nomad. Had he met a less charitable fate? Salazar tracked my inward turmoil like a vulture circling carrion. Wondering about your partner. Don't worry, he and I have much catching up to do. Family reunions are always emotional. Salazar's grin stretched wider, thin skin failing to contain his sinister mirth. I forced down rising bile, fixing him with a steely stare. "Why are we still alive, Salazar?" His expression turned reptilian. "You still have uses to me, little rabbit. Information to trade, strings yet to pull. You see, while you believed yourselves the puppets pulling strings, was I puppeteering from above all along?" Revulsion curdled my gut anew at the implication. Had our investigation been twisted to Salazar's agenda from the very start? But why toy so elaborately instead of crushing us outright? What deeper games were afoot? Salazar sensed my questions and chuckled, an abrasive rasp. All will be revealed in due time. Cipher, just sit tight and enjoy the show. I have big plans for you both. With that, he swept from the room, cronies flanking him like shadows. As the door clanged shut once more, I was left alone with nothing but my spiraling thoughts. In the suffocating dark, above and below, machinations I could not see were unfolding, pulling strings we had never seen. The hours crawled by tormentingly slow, as raw fear and fury warred within my aching mind. Whatever Salazar had in store, I knew with gut-wrenching certainty now that escape would not come easily. Through trial and error, we had wandered into a tangled spider's web, too late realizing we were merely flies struggling vainly in its binding silk strands. Now all that remained was to wait and watch in helpless dread as the true puppet master pulled his final unknowable strings from the deepest shadows. Time lost all meaning, locked away in that cell. Meals appeared without rhythm or reason through a slot in the steel door, only prolonging an existence bereft of hope or purpose. My body weakened, but mind continued its torturous machinations, wrestling endlessly with the same unanswerable questions. Who truly held the reins of power in this sordid underground empire? What deeper deceptions had led Nomad and I into Salazar's trap? Most agonizingly of all was Nomad still alive somewhere beyond these walls, suffering unknown torments at the hands of his monstrous brother. Alone with nothing but these dark musings, madness seemed the inevitable end. I began to understand how completely Salazar held dominion even over thoughts in this place. It was part of his game, breaking souls slowly through psychic attrition, before the final kill. My salvation came unexpectedly one gray dawn, when footsteps approached once more. But instead of Salazar's cronies, the door clicked open to reveal the man himself, grinning wider than ever. "Rise and shine, little Cipher. Today is a special day," he sang, songed far too cheerily. "Come along now. There's a show I think you'll find." Two hulking brutes hauled me to unsteady feet, binding my wrists tightly before prodding me with tasers into the hall. My legs had wasted away to useless sticks after endless isolation, sending shooting pains with every labored step. But I refused to show further weakness before Salazar. Through twisting corridors, we descended into depths I'd not plumbed since that fateful night at the warehouse. My heart clenched at memories of those souls left behind to fates unknown. By the time we reached our destination, I could barely stand on numb feet. The chamber opened before me like some vision of hell. Cages lined rusty walls, occupants barely sentient husks, gazing vacantly into middle distance. In the center ring, two figures moved in graceless combat. Nomad, face a ruin of scar and blood, scarcely able to lift arms, defending feeble blows from his attacker. His brother, Salazar's prized Pete, now finally unleashed for the savagery he craved. I realized with sinking dread what vile sacrifice this depraved performance demanded. Tears stung my eyes, mingling helpless rage. How long had Salazar orchestrated this diabolical spectacle for his own sadistic pleasure? As Nomad sank at last to his knees, hands trembling weakly upward in final plea, Salazar threw back his head and laughed, a noise curdling as bile. "Enough games. End him." He howled with abandon to pure madness, revealed at last. His brother hesitated, madness and bloodlust, fighting some remnant of humanity within. In that fraction of second, something akin to understanding passed between Nomad and I, where we stood worlds apart. With every atom of will left in my shattered vessel, I found my voice and screamed defiance into that hellish arena one final time. The effect was electric. Frenzied cries arose from spectators long kept voiceless. In their rising chorus, guards and master alike were stunned just long enough. With a strength born of nothing but sheer wrath and grief, Nomad surged upward once more to twist his attacker's neck in a violence I knew in my heart was only justice long overdue. Salazar shrieked in impotent outrage as his perfect scheme crumbled before the power of unity, even among the broken. As order began to descend into chaos, all I could feel was relief and a profound, devastating sorrow for all we had suffered and lost to bring the truth to light at long last in the shadows. The nightmare came to an end, buried deep in darkness that night, amid a cacophony of screams and gunfire as law enforcement stormed the compound. Salazar's men fought tooth and nail to maintain their sordid dominion, but faced an unstoppable wave of righteousness. By dawn, it was over. I drifted in and out of consciousness for days thereafter, clinging to life through force of will alone, as medics worked tirelessly to repair shredded flesh and even more tattered spirit. Nomad 2 was ferried away for urgent care, despite protestations. We both knew we're feeble at best. All that remained was to heal and to hope. Weeks blurred into months of gradual recovery. Those scars would remain underneath the skin forevermore. Through it all, a question continued to haunt my weary thoughts. Had we truly succeeded in shutting the black market down permanently? Or would another even darker beast rise to take its place over time? Only continued vigilance could answer that. At long last, strength returned enough for one final mission. Nomad and I met once more in that twilight place, between light and shadow, each bearing scars that would never fully fade. Silently, we turned our focus to the underground ruins where it all began, picking through the charred wreckage left in law's cleansing fire. The decaying warehouse gave up no further secrets, but its buried crypt revealed a gruesome treasure trove of evidence, proof positive to seal convictions for those few surviving puppeteers. Our work here was truly finished at last. Still, shadows lingered where bright light could never penetrate completely. The digital underworld's perils were far from vanquished. As we emerged into daylight once more, two survivors standing amid ashes of the past, an understanding passed unspoken between Nomad and I. This unique fellowship born of darkness would end, but the mission would not. Separately, we would continue the slow fight to keep hope alive for those lost in shadows, using the skills of deceit and anonymity without becoming what we hunted. One last time, we exchanged our vigilante aliases, donning new covers as we inevitably splintered on divergent paths. Whatever names or faces the future held, this singular struggle to bring light underneath the surface would endure, carried on by souls forever branded by our shared ordeal in that secret place beneath the innocent glow of computer screens. There, in shadows unseen, the real war was only just beginning. The neon lights of the corner pocket internet cafe cast an eerie glow, reflecting off John's distracted eyes as he scrolled idly through strange sites on the deep web. His curiosity had grown insatiable lately, driving him nightly to probe the uncharted corners of the dark web, using this cafe's anonymous connection. A notification pinged, announcing an impending data transfer from an unknown address. John clicked hesitantly, wary of potential malware. But instead of corrupting his machine, the download completed harmlessly, depositing only an encrypted file labeled README onto his desktop. Frowning, John opened the file to find garbled symbols and a vague message. Stop it before it's too late. What could this cryptic clue possibly mean? An odd prank or something more ominous? He messaged a contact on an underground chat forum for insights, but received no useful responses, only heightened unease. As John hesitated, his phone rang with an unknown number. "Don't leave the cafe," warned a stern female voice, then hung up without identifying herself or her affiliation. Alone in the crowded room, a chill crawled up John's spine. Who was watching him? And why? His thoughts fractured when a new message popped up. From David, his friend who vanished without a trace months ago. Panicked words blurred across John's screen. "If you have the cipher, run now. They're coming for you." David's paranoid warning set John's nerves ablaze. Had something sinister befallen his friend? And what was this cipher that now implicated John as well? Before he could respond, the cafe doors slammed shut with a deafening boom. Spinning around, John froze in horror. Masked figures closed in on unsuspecting patrons, sedating them one by one with tranquilizer guns. In moments, the room transformed into a nightmarish scene. John ducked behind the counter, pulse hammering as muffled screams rang out. Peering through a gap, John witnessed inconceivable images that burrowed into his mind's eye. The masked men loaded unconscious bodies onto unmarked vans, parked outside, under cover of darkness. A vast conspiracy was unfolding before his eyes, and John now harbored its ominous secret. Trapped amid unfolding chaos, John realized with dread that he was inescapably ensnared in something far larger and more disturbing than he could have ever imagined. With the cafe now empty, John emerged cautiously from his hiding spot. The doors had resealed behind the vans, trapping him inside the darkened building. Through the front windows, John watched the last vehicle pull away into night. An eerie stillness fell as the truth dawned. He was now a fugitive, pursued by unknown forces. But who were they, and what did they want with the innocents taken? John scoured the silent cafe for clues, hoping to understand David's warning. On a discarded computer, he found the encrypted symbols from the mysterious file still on screen. Checking his phone, John saw the panicked message had vanished without a trace like David himself. A creak made John freeze, instincts screaming danger. He ducked behind the counter again as heavy footsteps approached. Peering through the gap, John glimpsed masked men returning to inspect the cafe, guns drawn. His racing mind gambled on one desperate possibility. He must flee while they were distracted. Crawling on hands and knees, John stealthily crossed the open floor towards the back exit. Just a few more feet. A board squeaked loudly under his palm. The men's heads snapped around, flashlights spearing the dark. "There! By the doors!" one shouted. Bullets ricocheted off metal as John threw himself through the emergency exit. He tumbled onto damp asphalt and sprinted down the alley. Gunfire echoed behind him as torches gave chase. John sped through back streets, dodging between dumpsters for cover. The men were larger, but he knew these streets. A lifetime evading bullies had taught him to lurk in shadows. Slipping around a corner, John slowed to catch his breath, listening for pursuers. Silence. He had lost them for now. But escaping was only the first step. Now John needed allies to unravel the cryptic clues and stay one step ahead of the masked group hunting him. Beth, his friend since childhood, was his only option for help, if she didn't betray him first. Sneaking through back alleys, John arrived at Beth's apartment building. He tapped out their coded knock and waited, pulse racing. After an agonizing delay, the peephole darkened. Beth's anxious green eyes widened, seeing John on the threshold. "Let me in, quick," John hissed. "We're not safe anywhere anymore. I need your help." John explained the night's unbelievable events as Beth locked her apartment door, worry lines creasing her forehead. "This can't be real," she breathed. "What have you gotten yourself into?" "I wish I knew," John replied grimly. He opened his laptop to show the encrypted symbols still on screen. "David said this is the key, but it makes no sense. Can you help crack it?" Beth studied the strange character strings thoughtfully. "This code is complex, but between the two of us." Her fingers flew across the keyboard as John peered over her shoulder. Code breaking had long been their shared hobby. Little did they know its urgency now. Hours passed tensely as they tested algorithms and substitutions, scraping for understanding. "Wait, try this." John pointed to a repeating symbol pair. Beth typed, and an English letter suddenly resolved. Ret. More patterns emerged under their watchful eyes. By dawn, entire words had crystallized through guesswork and logic. Experiment. Subjects. Disappearances, Beth murmured as she transcribed. John felt sick, cold dread pooling in his stomach. Could David and the others have been test subjects in some twisted project? A loud crash jolted them from their decrypting trance. Boots pounded up the stairs outside as Beth yanked John behind the couch. Peering through the blinds, they saw masked figures kicking in neighbors' doors. The hunters had tracked John here. His heart dropped. "They're searching apartments. We have to run now." Gathering their proof, the friends fled through the back, breath misting in the chill morning air. Ducking erratic patrols, They headed for the university. Its crowds might shield them until a new plan formed. As they emerged onto a bustling street, a sleek black car rolled up. Tinted windows rolled down to reveal the stern woman from John's phone call. "Get in. We've been expecting you." John froze, stunned. Had this mysterious woman toyed with him all along? Beth squeezed his arm nervously, but her eyes held newfound steel. "We're not going anywhere until you explain what's really happening," she challenged the shadowy figure. For now, John's only choice was to play along and hope he wasn't delivering them into further danger. The car sped through city streets as John and Beth demanded answers. But the woman, who introduced herself only as Jane, remained cryptic. "We're an organization dedicated to human progress, for the greater good. But rogue elements hijacked our work for unethical aims. Like experimenting on people," John said. Jane sighed. "I can't say more yet. Trust that I'm on your side and want to help." The car pulled into an abandoned warehouse. "This safe house will keep you hidden until the situation's resolved," Jane said, ushering them inside. Something felt off. John grabbed Beth's hand and bolted, sprinting into the surrounding woods as shouts rang out behind them. Gunshots echoed through the trees as masked men pursued. "We can't outrun bullets forever," Beth panted. They darted down an embankment, taking shelter in a drainage pipe. Muffled voices drew closer. A distant engine roared, growing louder. Headlights appeared, speeding straight at their hideout. John shoved Beth out just in time as the vehicle rammed into the pipe, collapsing the entrance. They crawled out amid the wreckage, no pursuers in sight. Exhausted, the friends stumbled onto a country road as dawn broke. A passing trucker gave them a lift into the next town. There, they discovered their images splashed across missing posters, plastered everywhere. "We're not safe anywhere linked to our past lives," John realized grimly. After a hasty shop for supplies, they headed into the dense forest, leaving no trail. Deep in the wilderness, they paused to eat and regroup. Jane sold us out. "We're on our own now," Beth said. But another puzzle piece fell into place. These woods surrounded a remote research facility, matching clues from the decoded file. Their only options were to evade capture or uncover the sinister truth. Under cover of night, they began infiltrating the complex. The forest shrouded John and Beth as they stalked the facility's perimeter. Barbed wire fences and security cameras watched every approach, but a blind spot beckoned near the secondary generators. During a patrol's gap, they bolted across and vaulted over, dropping silently into the shadows of a supply yard. Crates packed the area, the ideal cover for sneaking closer unnoticed. Slithering between containers, they spied the main building emerging through the tree line, a sprawling research complex patrolled by armed guards. "This must be where David and the others were taken," Beth whispered. As they pondered an entrance, shouting erupted ahead. A fray was underway, the perfect diversion. They sprinted from hiding and darted inside an open delivery bay just as gunfire crackled in the distance. Rushing down sterile hallways between fire alarms, they passed a window into an operating theater. Through the glass, John froze in horror. Unconscious figures lay on metal tables while masked surgeons cut them open. Beth tugged him away urgently. "We have to contact the underground and take this place down. Now." Her defiance stirred John's resolve. Following surviving schematics on Beth's phone, they hunted for the server room controlling security. Bursting through a door, they found not servers, but Jane and her cronies waiting with tranquilizer guns. Right on time, Jane smiled coldly. "We've been expecting you." She gestured ahead as cell doors slid open. David and others imprisoned inside, experiments etched on their mutilated bodies. "No." John choked, betrayed tears falling. "You did this." Just then, An explosion rocked the hallways. Underground rebels had launched their attack. Jane cursed and fled with her remaining men as prisoners began vanishing one by one to safety. John and Beth had succeeded in dismantling the sinister operation at last. Fear and adrenaline fueled John as he chased Jane's fleeing form through the smoke-filled complex. She wouldn't escape after the unspeakable crimes committed here. Bursting through exit doors, he saw her leap into a waiting helicopter on the landing pad. John sprinted and grabbed a tethered rope dangling from the skids just as it lifted off. As the chopper gained altitude, John clung desperately to whipping cord. Inside, Jane aimed a revolver at his white-knuckled grip. A shot rang out, but missed. They reached a stalemate. Her advantage was severed if he fell. Through waves of nausea, John gazed down on the uprising unfolding below. Rebel soldiers engaged the last researchers in a fierce firefight among the burning buildings as freed prisoners escaped to safety. A forceful gust rocked the craft, granting John a moment to grapple onto the skid. Struggling closer despite Jane's kicks, he grasped her weapon hand, wrestling for control. Another shot discharged harmlessly into the night. With an animal howl, Jane kicked John's grip loose, sending him sliding toward the open door as resistance flared beneath. At the precipice, their eyes met. Hers a raging tempest, his a stoic calm. "Let it end," John said simply. Her crazed sneer crumpled into defeat. With a sob, Jane tossed the gun aside and surrendered, defeated at last. As cheers arose from below, the forces of justice had finally prevailed over madness and shadow. In subsequent trials, scientists were sentenced for unthinkable crimes against humanity. The charred ruins now lay reclaimed by nature. David and survivors found solace in rebuilding lives, free from fear and oppression. As for John, steadfast courage had liberated them all from shadows, seeking to ensnare mankind in darkness forevermore. The light of truth could not be overcome.